This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
Welcome back to the Fantasy Fanalysts podcast. Hope you guys all had a great week 8 of fantasy football. Hopefully you had Dalvin Cook on your team, didn't have to go against him, or you had a really bad week of fantasy football. Nick, how was your week?
This was probably my most successful fantasy week in probably the last year or two.
Oh, damn.
Yeah, I well, needless to say, I had Dalvin Cook running in every lineup I played this weekend.
Yeah, fun fact, we both did against each other.
We did. I also had Brandon Ayuk going in every lineup this weekend. He was very cheap, panned out real well. I had, let's see, who else did I have? I had the Keenan Allen Justin Herbert stack going in a couple lineups. I had Alvin Kamara in one of my lineups. Really, the only position that kind of hurt me this week was tight end. Mm-hmm. I couldn't get the right tight end pick this week. I went with a few different ones in Trey Burton and Hunter Henry in the matchup play, and it didn't really work.
Got a touchdown at Trey Burton.
Yeah, but I mean, 8 points, and it was all saved because of a rushing touchdown.
Yeah.
Like, he was having a terrible game. I mean, hell, Jack Doyle outperformed him this week.
Hey, when you deploy touchdown in FanDuel, unless you're going for like one of the top 3 guys, all you're hoping for is a touchdown.
Right. No, honestly, yes. I was very happy to see Trey Burton run it in for a touchdown. He almost didn't make it either.
Mm-hmm. It was close.
I played a great defense this week, picking the Eagles.
We had almost the exact same lineup, almost.
We did. We had very similar lineups today.
You can tell we're spending too much time talking about fantasy football together.
Yes. I mean, that's kind of always been the truth. We've always kind of targeted the same people in the draft, gone after the same guys, and our lineups tend to be pretty similar. I went on one of my lineups. I went with a Dalvin Cook, Alvin Kamara stack, and then punted on receiver the rest of the way with guys like Tyler Boyd, Brandon Ayuk, Marquise Brown, which that really didn't work.
I mean, all 3 of my FanDuel lineups had Ayuk. Well, they all had Ayuk and Boyd. I think I had to pivot from Fulgham on one because one of them didn't have the Sunday night slate.
Right, yes. And Fulgham was my other guy that I trusted. And then I had one other receiver. And then that one I put Keenan Allen in, I believe. And it worked out. I mean, in every single DFS lineup I played this weekend, I was in the money. So I walked away with a good chunk of change this weekend, and then I won my season-long matchup by a hefty margin. I could have not played my wide receiver 1 in defense and still ended up with a 50-point victory.
Huh.
Yeah. So it was and it's not like he played that bad. The other guy that I played against had a really bad week. He didn't. He had a pretty average week. I just exploded, and it had a lot to do with Dalvin Cook. But no, this was one of the best fantasy weeks I've had in a long time. Very rarely do I get to say, I guess I can't really say very rarely, but not that often do I say every one of my lineups was a win this weekend. So I was pretty happy to see that.
Yeah, I was in a similar boat as you. Obviously, the league that we're in together, your lineup edged me out. But the other 2 leagues I was in, I did manage to win both of them. So I won a good chunk of change this week as well. And right now in my regular fantasy league, it's actually neck and neck, and I got 2 corners going in, Carlton Davis and Logan Ryan right now in this game. I need 10 points combined from the 2 of them to win.
I will say when I was 18...
I have Kenny Galladay in my lineup and then goosing me. So
nice. When I was 18 points behind you in our FanDuel league, when I had 5 guys to play, including a quarterback, in Justin Herbert.
No, I figured you had Justin Herbert just based off our discussions.
Right, and then I had my flex to go and a couple receivers to go going into the 4 o'clock games, and you had 3 to play.
No,
you had 3 to play. I was feeling pretty good because knowing our conversations and guys that we like in DFS, I was like, all right, something tells me he's got the exact same defense, wide receiver stack in Fulgham, Ayuk, and the Eagles D going into Sunday, the mid-afternoon games as well as the night games. And I was like, all right, I feel pretty confident in that. So if I can get 20 points out of Herbert and Allen combined, I was golden.
Easy.
And I felt very comfortable with that.
Easy money.
Absolutely. So I felt good about that one. And sure enough, we did have the same stack going on.
Yeah.
So, no, I mean, it feels good to be in the winning column once again. I mean, I can't say I've been struggling this fantasy year, but it's not been my best fantasy year. I can't really say I've put as much effort into this fantasy season as I normally do. Just because I'm not, there's not as much money on the line. I mean, I normally have in my primary season-long league, I normally have a good chunk of change on that league amongst, our DFS, and we normally have a small wager on our season-long Friends League that didn't happen this year. We moved it to DFS. So, I mean, it doesn't quite feel the same. Plus, COVID has changed a lot with sports in general. It's kind of made it less exciting in a lot of ways. I mean, watching college football is just not the same in any way.
Oh, yeah.
Like, even watching a rivalry game like Michigan State this weekend and being in the home state, obviously, like this is where we grew up, we're both state fans, that game is huge to us. It just didn't feel the same. Like, I didn't have the same energy I normally would. I bet you a lot of that has to do with the fact that we were watching it in our own homes as opposed to that, together, which is what we normally do. So obviously that probably took away some of it as well for the excitement, but it just didn't feel the same. And I kind of feel that way across all sports. So that's kind of bled into the fantasy realm as well for me. But how'd you fare this weekend?
Like I said, I won out except for you.
I was pretty unstoppable this week. Fun fact, I went through to see, I put up the highest point total of the year in our DFS league this week.
Nice.
Yep. I actually think you put up the second highest total of the year this week. So
I think my highest is like 170 something.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't know you had a 170. I know you had a 160 week, but I thought you beat it this week.
But yeah, I put in 3 different lineups, and all 3 lineups scored in the 160s. 2 of them were good for wins. Then one you edged me out in our league. But yeah, right now it's just left is the IDP league, which is a league I don't take it seriously because the scoring is all janky and I'm not commissioner. So
fair enough. Do you put extra, and I mean, this is kind of a question for everybody out there that likes to be the commissioner of their leagues. Like, do you put extra effort in the leagues you're commissioner of?
No, unless it's like the only time I put extra effort in a league that I'm commissioner of is it's really if it's more money on the line. Like, that basically dictates the effort level I put in because I'm always in multiple leagues, so the priority has to go to the leagues that have more money on the line. But just based on, like, when I wasn't always commissioner of our family league that I'm commissioner of, and I was still putting in full effort because it's always been my big money league, and like the effort level hasn't changed since I became commissioner. It's just, I guess,
just more work.
It's just more work. That's all.
I mean,
especially this year, through doing the hybrid thing. So
that does make it a little bit interesting too. Like, obviously, the leagues that have more money, like everybody has, like, well, let's be honest, everybody's got 1 or 2 leagues that they just focus extra hard on every year, and then the other leagues are just a step or 2 below that, and. That league for me obviously has always been my big money league, and then the Friends League I tend to pay quite a bit of attention to, just even if it's for bragging rights, which as we've gotten older that's changed. It's not anymore, but even if it's for bragging rights, it's just having the bragging rights amongst friends, plus the amount of trash talking that goes on in group chats is always fun to pitch in on, and you can't really do much trash talking when you take a big L one week. So but those seem to be the 2 leagues I put a lot of effort into. And then the other leagues tend to take a back seat a little bit to them. So, but shall we kick it off this week? I mean, I know you said you brought up some buy low, sell highs. And since we're through the halfway point of the season, I wanted to kind of get our halfway fantasy MVPs. So our midway fantasy MVPs and kind of go from there and see what we're looking at. So go ahead and kick things off with the buy low, sell highs, and then we'll move on into our MVPs before we hit the segmented topics of the show.
All right, let's run it. I guess I will start with the let's see if you buy or sell on these potential buy low candidates. The first buy low candidate on this list is Le'Veon Bell. Le'Veon Bell has kind of almost evenly split duties with Clyde Edwards-Helaire in Kansas City, and a lot of owners, me included, as I was kind of forced to take Le'Veon Bell in my league based on how the draft went. Me included, owners like me have been completely hesitant to put him, like, I have it. He's been riding my bench. Le'Veon Bell has not seen the light of day in my lineup. If you're not a Le'Veon Bell owner, do you see a future in Kansas City where you would be looking to buy low on Lev Bell, or are you staying away?
In all honesty, it would have to be real low. And the reason is because I felt like that Jets game was the one game where Andy Reid would say, all right, bud, go get him. Mm-hmm. And he's still had more of a 50-50 split in that game. And it's not like he blew up and went off. This is a different Le'Veon Bell than we've seen in years past when he was with Pittsburgh. And I think he's not playing in the same role as he did there. And so that's kind of affected him a little bit. And obviously playing in with the Jets, that's going to take a lot out of your effort levels as well. So
yeah,
and I really do believe that the Chiefs are going to give Clyde Edwards-Helaire every opportunity to be successful, along with the fact that Andy Reid has always kind of employed more of a running back by committee.
Yeah.
So while I don't think Edwards-Helaire is going to dominate that backfield, I still think he's going to be more of the top that get the lion's share of the work with Le'Veon Bell coming in spells, maybe more of a 60-40 split. So is he a really solid handcuff, or is he a guy that you can stash and maybe plug in certain weeks depending on the matchup? Yes, but it would have to come at the right price. So yeah, I'll buy low, but it's going to have to be pretty damn low, and I have to have quite a bit of depth at running back on my roster or be desperate.
Yeah.
So I will buy low, but I'm not going to spend very much on them at all.
Personally, I'm convinced that Kansas City just hates running the football.
I mean, they do. When you got Pat Mahomes shouldering the load, why would you ever run the ball?
Exactly. So in a game against the Jets where they were fully in control all game, they had the lead all game. Game script was completely in the running back's favor here. Their 4-man running back group of Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Le'Veon Bell, Darwin Thompson, Damian Williams didn't even combine for a 20 carry workload. I don't have faith that even if Clyde Edwards-Helaire were to go down, for example, and Le'Veon Bell became the lead back in this backfield, I just don't have faith that Lev Bell would get more than 12 carries in this backfield. And judging by what he's done with the carries the first 2 games of the Chiefs, I don't see him doing anything much with those 12 carries. So I personally am staying away. But
yeah,
I agree. Maybe if I could get away with trading a guy, maybe if I could trade a Nyheim Hines, because maybe someone sees value in him after this week and probably him for Le'Veon Bell, I guess.
That makes a little bit of sense if it's a guy that you think is just more of a splash in the pan, like Nyheim Hines, who really hasn't done anything at all this year. And maybe,
I thought Nyheim Hines was going to be really good.
Right, and I did too. I also thought Chris Thompson was going to be really good, and that kind of fell off the table. So, I mean, those pass-catching backs that aren't your lead backs are always just a crapshoot, though. Like Duke Johnson, he was always one. Darren Sproles was always one. Tariq Cohen was always one.
Phillip Rivers. We could always rely on Phillip Rivers to give us that
right, but
volume to the pass catchers.
He just didn't this year.
Yeah.
But, I mean, Nyheim Hines, maybe a guy would be willing to part with Le'Veon Bell to bring in a guy like Nyheim Hines if he is high on him. And I'd probably make a trade like that to bring in Bell.
All right, next guy that could be a potential buy low, Jonathan Taylor. After Marlon Mack went down, everyone expected Jonathan Taylor to be a workhorse in the Colts backfield. Expect him to get at least 20 carries a game. It's kind of been turning into a running back by committee over there. And then now most recently he hurt his ankle a bit. But Nick, are you looking to buy low on Jonathan Taylor?
I am, actually. I think he's going to continue to be the guy in that backfield. He really kind of didn't get the opportunity this week because of injury. Mm-hmm. He was kind of hampered, and that game was never really in doubt for the Colts, so they really didn't have any reason to put any excess work on Jonathan Taylor's shoulders this week to maybe potentially injure him further. So I am actually on the Jonathan Taylor buy low train. I think he's got a really solid opportunity, and I think he's going to continue to be the guy in that backfield. And they do love to run the football, so he's going to get every opportunity to succeed. And without Marlon Mack there, I really don't think Jordan Wilkins or Nyheim Hines are really going to be able to take that job away and hold it away from him for very long.
I'll agree with you on the buying low on Jonathan Taylor. And a lot of it, well, obviously, if you're in a dynasty league or a keeper league, you definitely buy low on Jonathan Taylor because that potential is just too good to pass up. But in general, this is still a running back that is getting double-digit carries every single week. So he's not getting the workhorse volume that you wanted, but he's getting double-digit carries, and you're just hoping that as a rookie, he can eventually pick up the game enough where he can do enough with those carries to warrant maybe 20 carries. But if you look at his upcoming schedule, he's going against teams like Green Bay, Houston twice, the Raiders, Jacksonville. He's got Houston and Jacksonville both during the playoffs. Okay, Jonathan Taylor could end up towards the end of the season being one of those league winner types if he eventually picks it up, because he does have a soft schedule towards the end of the season. I think that you could get Jonathan Taylor for a really good price right now, considering he hasn't really produced in the last 5 games now. So, yeah, I'm on board the Jonathan Taylor train.
I completely agree. Anytime you got the kind of workload that he's got, and they love to run the football, he's a guy that I'm going to go after in a lot of different ways. And I know people are going to be selling low on him right now to get what they can for him, maybe a little bit more of a sure thing. So I'd be jumping at that opportunity.
Yeah. All right, your final buy low candidate, and this is a threefer.
Really?
Cowboys wide receivers. They are probably dirt cheap value at this point. I don't know if you saw Amari Cooper had one catch?
One catch. I mean, if it's Michael Gallup and Ben DiNucci's going to be playing long term, I'm going after Michael Gallup, let me tell you.
Basically, basically since Dak Prescott has gone down, the wide receiver receiving core value has gone down the tubes. It's shot. Really, if you want to have any hope of salvaging this, because it doesn't look like Andy Dalton was able to do anything with them, Ben DiNucci clearly isn't able to do anything with them, you're really hoping that the Cowboys bring in a quarterback. So I'm going to toss it to you, Nick. Where do your hopes lie with the Cowboys wide receiver group? Are you buying them, or are you just staying the hell away from Dallas?
Honestly, I'm going to buy them a little bit. And the reason is because I probably have some depth at wide receiver if I'm doing this. Because I actually, while I don't think they have a ton of value or a ton of production with Ben DiNucci under center, I do think they have some with Andy Dalton under center. Because again, he is a far more experienced and proven quarterback in the NFL who's able to hit his receivers and spread the ball around. We saw him with a top-notch receiver in A.J. Green and how good he was in Cincinnati. And I think Amari Cooper can be that still. So yeah, I am going to be buying on that Dallas wide receiver core. Maybe, it's going to obviously be tiered with Amari Cooper being that top option, and then we go down to CeeDee Lamb and Michael Gallup. But I definitely am going to be taking a look that route and seeing what I can get for him, because I may be able to get something real, get one of those guys for a lot lower than their value really is.
Yeah.
So I'm curious to hear what you think, though.
For me, I think it's going to depend. So if it's a guy like CeeDee Lamb, that's a guy I really loved when Dak was throwing the football. But he has completely fallen off the map under Andy Dalton and obviously under DiNucci as well. Michael Gallup, DiNucci seems to love him. Andy Dalton didn't really throw the ball his way either. I think the one receiver that I'd be looking to buy low on in this Cowboys wide receiver group is Amari Cooper. And that's because that's really the only guy I can see having at least some of his volume salvaged when Andy Dalton comes back under center. Now, Amari Cooper's probably going to cost you a little more than guys like CeeDee Lamb and Michael Gallup, so I don't know how low you'll be able to buy him for, but you'll definitely be able to buy him below the value he was at with Dak Prescott, obviously. So I think I'm staying away from guys like CeeDee Lamb, Michael Gallup, but I will try to buy low on Amari Cooper.
Yeah, like I said, I can agree with that. I'd be taking a big long shot with a guy like CeeDee Lamb or Michael Gallup, but with Amari Cooper, there is still there is still a little bit more of a safety net there. So
yeah,
I wouldn't hate that idea at all.
All right, let's go to the high guys. First name on this list, Travis Fulgham. So Travis Fulgham, ever since coming into that Philly lineup, he's taken that number 1 spot in Philly by storm. He's had a touchdown all but one game. He's averaging like 17 fantasy points a game in half-point PPR leagues. The question here is Jalen Reagor finally came back from IR this week. He got a touchdown. This is the Eagles' first-round pick, wide receiver. There is a chance that Jalen Reagor could eat into Fulgham's targets. So the question here is, are you sticking with Fulgham rest of the season, or are you looking to sell high on him?
Honestly, I'm probably going to stand pat with Travis Fulgham because I do think he has kind of become that number one receiver in that offense. However, if the right offer did come to the table for me where I could get someone who is a proven year in, year out wide receiver one or, low end wide receiver one, and I can trust that guy to be healthy and ready to go, then maybe I do pull the trigger. And the reason is because Jalen Reagor can take away some of that workload from Travis Fulgham. And also on top of that, I think that the Eagles are just a total dumpster fire. Carson Wentz, I think, is just going to implode at any point in time. So I really don't know what kind of production I'm going to be getting consistently moving forward out of that receiving core with the way that team is playing right now. Plus, with the presence of Jalen Reagor, and then you add Miles Sanders back into the fold, that is going to be another mouth to feed in that Eagles offense that's going to take some at least a couple touches away from a guy like Travis Fulgham. So I think that there's going to be a situation where you do have a lot of mouths to feed in that offense. And while I do think Travis Fulgham is a guy you can rely on for the remainder of the year, if the right offer were to come along, I absolutely would pull the trigger.
I'm kind of along the same lines as you, because I'm leaning towards, I ride Fulgham. I hold on to him. I keep him for the year. Since he's been inserted into this Eagles lineup, he's been a wide receiver one. He's had high end wide receiver one value, believe it or not, in terms of scoring. So when you say that if the right offer comes along for me, it's I want to lock in that value. If you're giving me a wide receiver one for Travis Fulgham, if you're giving me a guy like, let's say, an AJ Brown or maybe like an Adam Thielen, yeah, I would probably do that. But other than that, I'm holding on Fulgham.
I mean, again, you'd have to give me a pretty hefty offer to try to pry Travis Fulgham away. So, I mean, you can't be throwing Amari Cooper at me and expect me to jump at it and say, "Oh, okay." No, it's gonna have to be someone who's having a good year and is proving
like 4 weeks ago, I would have been like, "All right, yeah."
Yeah, well, that's different.
All right, next guy, Antonio Gibson. He just had a season high 20 carries for a season high 128 yards and a touchdown in week 7, albeit against the Cowboys. This is a guy who's slowly seen his role expand. He had a lot of hype going into the season, and he's returned some value for fantasy owners. He's a RB2 on the season, and that's including that Dallas game. But before that Dallas game, like, he faced the Giants, went 9 for 30. He faced the Rams, went 11 for 27, both no touchdowns. He's had a hard slate of games, let's put it that way, with the Rams, Cleveland. These are some tough running defenses. Baltimore. The question here is, are you encouraged by the Dallas game to say Antonio Gibson is my running back 2 going forward, or are you trying to capitalize on his performance and get rid of him?
I'm going to actually ride the train here with Antonio Gibson. He's one of those guys who's young enough, and as you've seen his workload increase on a week-to-week basis, there really isn't anybody competing for that role. And with Kyle Allen as the quarterback for that team, instead of oh my God, I'm blanking. Dwayne Haskins there. I was blanking on his name. They seem to be relying more on that backfield than they were prior. So I think Antonio Gibson's going to continue to get opportunity moving forward. And I think that workload is just going to continue to increase on a weekly basis, especially if he continues to perform the way he's had. So I'm actually going to ride Antonio Gibson here because I still, with the way he performed to start the season, I don't think you're going to get enough value for what he really could bring you moving forward either.
You know when you can get enough value for him, though? About 4 or 5 games down the road. His upcoming schedule, he has the Giants, the Lions, the Bengals, and the Cowboys, and Philly. So it's going to be a fun few weeks for Antonio Gibson owners. I think at that point, then you're running into the playoffs, and then you have a couple tough games like San Francisco, Pittsburgh. But I think if you want to sell high on him, don't do it now. I say wait till Week 12, for sure, ride it out for the next few weeks. I wouldn't sell Antonio Gibson now, but he's for sure a sell high.
If you don't have a trade deadline or if you do have one that goes that deep, I would definitely be looking to dump him off after that because you got pretty much the best of what he's going to give you at that point. So I like I said, I'm riding Antonio Gibson moving forward right now. But
even then, in the playoffs, he's got Seattle, the Panthers, and Philly. Like, it's It's a pretty soft
I mean,
schedule.
that's not bad. I might just keep him for the entire year.
Yeah. All right, last guy, Brandon Ayuk. Brandon Ayuk has seen 14 catches for 260 yards and a touchdown over the last 2 games. And we'll talk about this in a little bit here, but George Kittle now out for 8 weeks, so there's some more target shares to go around here. However, Jimmy Garoppolo also down and out for an extended period. What are you doing, Brandon Ayuk? Are you selling him high at this point, or do you believe he can keep this production up?
I'm keeping him. There's literally nobody else in that offense that's a weapon whatsoever. Like, he is it. He is it in that offense. And frankly, didn't Jimmy Garoppolo go down fairly early in that game, and Ayuk really put up his best production late in that game, if I remember right? Which means that he put up his best production in that game with the backup quarterback in. So I'm going to ride Ayuk moving forward. Especially if, he's a guy that I really just took a flyer on, took a chance, and I really didn't expect much. He was a depth guy. I'm riding him, and I'm putting him in as my flex or my wide receiver 2 moving forward here, just because I do think he really is the top and only weapon that's a legit weapon there in San Fran. Plus, I think he's even more productive with the backup quarterback in there for the 49ers. So I like Ayuk moving forward.
I'm agreeing with you here. I definitely stick with Ayuk moving forward. I think he's a solid wide receiver 2 rest of the season. Let's just say I hope our buddy Alex kept him when I drafted him for him. So, all right, that's all I got for the buys and sells here. Let's move on to our halfway through the season.
The MVPs, the midway MVPs.
Let's take it position by position.
Yeah, position by position MVPs.
We'll each give you one per position unless you have multiple.
This was actually harder than I expected it to be. Because I'm not just going off of who's got the most points scored. I'm going off of what I've seen, what I expect them to also.
I'm going off value.
Going off value a little bit too. Ooh, value. I didn't even really. I mean, I did a little bit. I mean, if we're going guy who's given you the most value for what he's brought to the table, it's at quarterback, it's Ryan Tannehill. I mean, week in, week out, he is far from the most expensive quarterback. And he's been very consistently really, really, really good moving forward. So if in DFS plays, I do think he's probably been your most valuable quarterback. But my true MVP in terms of fantasy purposes and a guy that you could just ride pretty much every single week, it's Russell Wilson. That guy is unbelievable. And he's fruit, just... What?
This is low-hanging fruit.
He's just had one of those seasons so far that's just ridiculous. Outside of Pat Mahomes.
Yeah.
And even Pat Mahomes, nobody is within 5 passing touchdowns of this man. Nobody. Yeah. That number I expect to continue to climb because that receiving core is stupid good. I mean, he's been the guy right now, and he's a guy that you can ride regardless of how expensive he is. But for going pure value, it's Ryan Tannehill for me.
For me, it's, and again, I was basing my MVPs off like value. So like basically what I was doing was value got compared to ADP, stuff like that. My guy was Josh Allen for QB.
Fair.
This is a guy that was drafted in the 9th round in most leagues, and right now he's a top 5 quarterback. And this is a dude that a lot of people like after he got drafted, like in real life in the NFL, a lot of people wrote off as a long-term project. He's probably not going to be any good for at least a few years, and he's been a bit of a world beater this year. He's returned really good value for you, and that's my quarterback MVP.
He's had I don't disagree whatsoever. I mean, he's got 20 total touchdowns to go with 5 picks. He does turn the ball over a little bit, but he's got that dual threat to him that makes him lethal. He's been able to make what really I didn't expect to be a very good receiving core in Buffalo turn out to be really good. Josh Allen definitely is a guy that you can really look at and say is giving you some of the best value this year. Yeah. But honestly, I think there's one guy we both are missing here that if we're talking ADP or value in terms of what he's costed in DFS.
Is it going to be my honorable mention?
It's going to be Justin Herbert.
Yeah, that's my honorable mention.
I mean, he didn't even play week 1. I think he started week 2, right? Because of the collapsed lung of Tyrod Taylor.
Yeah.
He started week 2, like day of was when he found out he was starting. So we really didn't even get to prepare with the ones and practice that week. But didn't even play week 1. And he's still a QB1. That tells you what type of season he's put up so far. So Justin Herbert has been a guy that has just lit the world on fire, and he's a guy you can trust every single week right now and just plug him in and forget about it. So Justin Herbert's really kind of that guy.
Yeah, I've been enjoying it in my regular fantasy league right now.
Same.
I have because I had Lamar Jackson as my QB. He was a keeper, and then it's a super flex league, so I picked up Justin Herbert as a flyer after week 2, and it's been paying dividends. Being able to have both Lamar Jackson and Justin Herbert in my starting lineup.
Not a bad play. Moving on to running backs.
Yep.
I mean, there's a few guys. I'm just going to throw it out there. There's a few guys you could look at in terms of total value. James Robinson is really the biggest one. He's a top 5 running back right now. Yes, they are just now hitting their bye, so that number may be a little bit inflated because they haven't seen a bye yet. But he has been a top.
If you want to go based on average, just average points per game, that will factor out the bye, and that is he's number 6.
Right. So he's been he's
still top.
Right. He's been a far higher back than we would have expected him to be at all this year. And even if he were to drop down a little bit, I still think he's far outperforming where he was taken in drafts, along with where we expected him to be playing behind that Jacksonville line. So he's really been a big surprise for me this year.
For me, it was James Robinson for me as well. But since you already got him, I'm going to take another guy. I'm going to go Kareem Hunt. Kareem Hunt's our guy who's an RB1 that most people got in the 5th, 6th, even 7th rounds. His ADP was 5, but based on the drafts that I was doing, I was seeing him drop a lot later because people were, for some reason, really afraid of Kareem Hunt. A lot of people are going to say, well, the only reason he's MVP is because Nick Chubb went down, but he was killing it even with Nick Chubb there.
He was performing with Nick Chubb there. Was he performing RB1 numbers with Nick Chubb there? No, but he was a lower end to mid-grade RB2 when Nick Chubb was there.
What week did Nick Chubb go down? Week 3?
I thought it was week 4. I don't know. But he was kind of in that middle tier, which still, that's still pretty solid out of a guy that's your secondary back on a team. So he was still a really solid option there. And I think Kareem Hunt moving forward is going to continue to have a big role in that offense and be a guy that you can trust week in and week out. I do have one other one as kind of an honorable mention here. And this guy is purely because of injury. Because of injury. But it's Mike Davis for the Panthers.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Nobody expected this man to do anything this year. Like, he wasn't even a rosterable player. And then Run CMC went down, and all of a sudden he's the back in Carolina, and he hit the ground running and took it in stride, and he's a top 10 back right now. He's RB8 in terms of total scoring. He's been a guy that has just shouldered the load for Carolina and weathered the storm while Christian McCaffrey was out, and actually turned that offense into what is, in all reality, a pretty solid one and not a fun one to play against. So Mike Davis is really a guy that's been one of the biggest surprises for me this year, and I know it's purely because of injury, and that workload's going to drastically drop as soon as McCaffrey comes back, but that's why it's a midway MVP and not a full season MVP.
Yeah. Moving on to wide receiver. My guy is DK Metcalf.
Oh, no question.
This is a guy who was going in the back of the 4th, early 5th round, top 5 wide receiver that you got back there. And it is annoying trying to pick between who's going to have the big game between Metcalf and Lockett. But
absolutely,
if you have him in a season-long league, he's a guy that you plug in, you don't even think about. And that's not oftentimes what you get, a 5th round pick. So DK Metcalf is definitely my wide receiver. He's a matchup nightmare, too. I love playing him.
DK Metcalf is one of the best, most fun guys to play in fantasy.
Yeah.
He's been just a massive surprise this year. Besides DK Metcalf, really the other guy I can look at is Stephon Diggs.
Yeah.
He's been a big surprise this year as well because, again, we really didn't expect him to be a middle of the road wide receiver 1. He's wide receiver 6 right now in scoring. He's been Josh Allen's number 1 guy, and nobody really expected him to be that. Beyond him, though, really the guy that's kind of surprised me the most has been Robbie Anderson. He was productive in New York with the Jets, but he's down in Carolina. He's cemented himself as a wide receiver 1 there. And I think he's going to hold on to that because he's week in and week out been so consistent. So, and I think that's going to continue.
All right, moving on to tight end then.
Yeah.
All right. So my tight end MVP, I'll be honest with you, first 4 or 5 weeks of the season, it was runaway Jonnu Smith. But the fact that Jonnu Smith has basically fallen off the map the last 3 games,
disappeared.
it makes me hesitant to name him my tight end MVP on the season. So I'm actually going to go with the Big Hawk.
TJ Hawkinson. I like it. Oh, I felt like you were going to say it, and it makes me so happy.
So TJ Hawkinson was a guy that, if he was even drafted, was the guy that went 13th round, 14th round in your draft. To return tight end 1 value, and not just tight end 1 value, we're talking borderline top 5 fantasy tight end value.
According to total scoring, he is top 5. He's tight end 4.
You can't ask for much more out of that. So I'm happy that our Lions tight end is a guy that you can plug every week and just forget about it. But it's TJ Hawkinson.
Almost makes you not hate the fact they took him with the number 8th overall pick,
7, whatever it was,
7, whatever. No, I completely agree on TJ Hawkinson. He's really been the biggest surprise for me. There are 2 other ones I can really throw out there that are giving you tight end 1 value, and guys that probably weren't even drafted in most fantasy leagues. And it's Robert Tonyan for the Packers has been an absolute stud. He's giving you tight end 5 numbers right now. And the other one is Dalton Schultz. And yes, Dalton Schultz is because of injury to Blake Jarwin, but he's stepped up in a big way and become the guy at tight end for them and really been a real solid option. Granted, that number, that's not going to stay the same. He is going to fall off a cliff because of the fact that Ben DiNucci is now the quarterback in Dallas.
Targeted him, 8 times?
He did go to him a lot. I just don't think the offense is going to be good enough to really keep him. How many the red zone opportunities are going to drastically drop, and that's where tight ends make their money, is in the red zone. I just don't think the opportunities are going to be there for them. So I do think that number is going to drop off a cliff. But so far this year, he has been really a big surprise in a lot of ways. So Dalton Schultz is another guy to look at.
All right, kickers. I'm just kidding.
I mean, I'm down. No. Cody Parkey, man. No.
Rodrigo Blankenship, man. Goggles.
I will actually throw the defenses out there. And the 2 that have been the biggest surprise for me.
I didn't do defenses, but okay.
I did take a couple of defenses here. The 2 that have really been the biggest surprise for me, because going into the season, I thought these 2 defenses were straight hot garbage. The first one really is one that I never expected, and really is because of probably 1 or 2 big weeks, but they are giving you point totals here. And it's the Miami Dolphins. They actually are the 5th best scoring defense right now, which when the hell did that happen? When did they get good?
It's scary.
This Miami team may make the playoffs. No, their defense is scoring at an alarming rate right now. I know they give up a lot of points, but they really are scoring at an alarming rate. They're getting to the quarterback, and they're forcing turnovers, and that's obviously how you're going to score as a defense. So the other one really for me that's kind of really surprised me is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Ooh, you didn't take mine. All right, cool.
Everybody talked about the offense of the Buccaneers, and nobody said a damn thing about the defense. Everybody was like, oh, that defense is going to be no good. There's no depth. Blah, blah, blah. Well, that defense has now been the 6th best scoring defense of the season. Yeah. And I really don't think anybody expected them to be a top 10 defense. I don't even know if they were drafted in most leagues. They might have been, but it was super late, obviously, because they're defense. But for them to be as a top 10 defense really has kind of taken pretty much everyone by surprise. So the Buccaneers is my second one.
Mine is this is on the fly, but mine's the Washington football team. Because believe it or not, first of all, they're a top 10 defense on the season. Second of all,
I got them at 13.
They are I got my 10. This is based on, this is just
I'm going NFL fantasy.
Right now I have my top 10, averaging 47 points, averaging 6.7, but total of 47 points on the season. Technically, they're tied for 7th, but I'm just going to call them top 10.
I've got them tied for 11th.
But anyway, Washington football team, believe it or not, the stingiest defense now through 8 weeks against receivers, only allowing Oh, I just lost it. Sorry.
Yeah.
Only allowing 20.8 fantasy points per game. That's better than the Rams. That's better than the Bears. That's better than the Panthers. I don't think anyone saw that coming with the Washington Redskins defense. And to think that you could get, we'll just call it borderline top 10 production then. We'll be happy with that one.
Yeah.
Get borderline top 10 production out of the Washington football team.
Mind you, that type of scoring is being put up with being one of only 4 teams inside the top, we'll call it 14 defenses to not have a score as a defense. So that means they've straight up been doing it with the defense and not with the fluke play that's like a pick six or a fumble recovery that just gives you a bunch of points for defense. I mean, the Colts right now have 3 defensive touchdowns.
I mean, let's be honest here. How fluky was our Eagles defense points last night?
They shouldn't have had,
and then the fake safety.
Yes, they shouldn't have had 6 points there, and then they were gifted 2 more. So. Yeah,
I was happy though.
I mean, I was too. But fun fact, Washington football team and the Buccaneers are my 2 defenses in my Yahoo league.
There you go. All right, so we want to waivers.
Both were picked up off of waivers.
So, waivers for this week. I'll be honest with you. This is not a week. I don't know, you probably feel different based on our pre-show conversation, but for me, this is not a week where I'm loving the waiver options. I have a handful, but I don't think any of these guys are guys that I'm going to tout like, oh, these guys could, give you value rest of the season or are going to, like, for sure going to give you value rest of the season or for sure going to be league winners. Like a lot of these are just mainly flyers to me. I don't know about you.
I've got a few that I think in the short term, I think actually I've got a couple that I think long term could be solid plays. For the most part, most of the ones I've got on my list are short-term options. They're short-term solutions. I do have 3 I do think are kind of more long-term. Granted, every single one of these players is nearing that 50% owned number. So they're like 2 of them are within 10% of 50%. So actually 2 of the 3 are 40% owned at least, and one of them is like 36. So
wait, how many guys do you have right now for waivers?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
All right, you got more than me, so I'll let you start.
All right, so the first guy, and this is one of those guys that I mentioned that I do think could be a long-term option here. He is 46% owned in Yahoo leagues, and it's the Patriots running back Damian Harris.
Damn it, man. Letting you start, I didn't mean take one of mine.
Well, sorry. He put up 102 yards on 16 carries against the Bills. That's the second time in 4 games that he's hit the 100-yard mark. He's averaging 5.7 yards per carry on 49 attempts right now. So he's really taken over that lead role in that backfield, especially with Sony Michel going down. And I don't think he's going to ever let it up. They drafted him for a reason, and he's going to continue to be the guy in that Patriots backfield. And they're going to have to continue to feed him the ball if they want to have any kind of success in New England. So Damian Harris is really a guy I would be going after right now.
Yeah, that's what I have as my top pickup for the week. Because, yeah, you're right. He's emerging as a lead back in his backfield, which feels really weird to say about a Patriots backfield, which is why part of me doesn't want to believe it.
Watch. Now, as soon as we say that, Rex Burkhead's going to get 23 carries and 2 touchdowns in the next game.
Oh, yeah, you're probably right. But just tagging on what you said about the 2, that's 2 out of 4 games now with 100 yards. He's also had double-digit carries 3 of the last 4 games. And he gets the Jets next week. So I think he's a guy you can pick up and play right away.
Absolutely. Do you want me to go again then, since I took one of yours?
Go for it.
All right. Here's another one that I do think you can grab and hold on to.
Do your running backs, because I don't have any more running backs.
Okay, I'll do running backs. All right, here's a guy that you can grab, and I think he's more of a short-term option, but it's running back JaMychal Hasty for the 49ers, 42% owned in Yahoo leagues, and that's mainly because he's literally all that's left. Yeah. And I said this last week, and I am repeating it again because Tevin Coleman went down again with an injury, and it seems like he's going to miss some time. So he quite literally is all that's left. I know Jerick McKinnon's there, but he's really a non-factor in my mind. So JaMychal Hasty's going to be the guy. I know he wasn't very good this week, but he's going to get opportunity. And opportunity is obviously going to lead to success when it comes to running backs, especially a team that likes to run the football. So I think JaMychal Hasty's a guy that you can pick up and possibly even rely on right away, because I do think he's going to be the short yardage guy. He's going to be the everything guy in their backfield because they have nobody else.
Did you want to do another running back, or because my next guy's wide receiver? So
I can do another one. This is a guy who is I have actually 2 more running backs.
Jesus, all right.
This is a guy who is a very short-term situation, and it's because of his performance this week, along with the fact that the guy who he outperformed this week is dealing with an injury right now, and it's Colts running back Jordan Wilkins, 1% owned. He's the hot hand right now, and Jonathan Taylor is honestly dealing with an ankle injury. So I think that if that is going to cause him to either miss some time or take away some of the workload off of his shoulders, then Jordan Wilkins may be a guy that you can plug and play in the right matchup. So it's a guy that you can't trust long term, but it's a guy you can maybe trust right here, right now, kind of a deal. Mm-hmm. The other running back I have is DJ Dallas for the Seahawks, 7.4% owned in ESPN. And this is mainly if Carlos Hyde and Chris Carson, God, there's so many C's there. Carlos Hyde and Chris Carson remain out. He really is your guy. He had 18 carries and 5 catches, so he had 23 total touches for 2 touchdowns. He performed really well, put up 20 points in fantasy this past week.
Good game.
Yeah, he did have a good game, and so if he's the guy, and that offense is great, so if he's the guy that's getting the start with the other 2 out, that's a guy you can ride and plug and play and be comfortable with it. So those are my running backs. I promise I have no more.
I'll go to wide receivers then, and I have 2, and the first guy I have is sticking with the Patriots, Jacoby Myers. He's available in basically all leagues. He had 10 targets this past week, which is his second
I've never even heard of him.
It's a second straight. I haven't heard of him until this week, to be honest with you. It's a second straight week leading the Pats in targets, though. And now that Edelman's going to be out for an extended period of time, he should continue to see plenty of opportunities in this very depleted Patriots receiving core. So it's a guy that he's almost just he's the guy by default, I guess. So pick him up. It's a flyer. I don't know how confident I am in playing him, but he's a guy you want to pick up and see what he does.
I'm really curious in weeks like this one or how much fantasy football affects a guy's Google numbers go up.
Yeah.
Like how many times how many more Googles has Jared Myers gotten this week? My wide receiver to pick up this week is actually Titans Corey Davis. 36% owned in ESPN leagues. He's played Yeah, I was kind of surprised too.
Really?
Yes, I was actually.
I thought
really
he was
surprised.
widely owned. Okay.
According to ESPN, he's not.
All right.
He's played in 5 games this year, and he's got He's had at least 10 points in each of them. In this past week, he had 8 catches for 128 yards and a touchdown. I know AJ Brown is really the lead guy there, but Corey Davis is a really, really solid secondary option for Ryan Tannehill, and even in some matchups, he seems to like Corey Davis a little bit better. So I think Corey Davis is a guy that you can pick up, go get if he's available, and grab him and even play him right away. So
my next guy is more of a stash, if anything, but Jalen Reagor, he's owned in 14.3% of leagues. I currently have him stashed. This was his first game back from injury for the Eagles, and he immediately was second on the team in targets behind only Fulgham, and he caught a touchdown. The Eagles did draft him in the first round to not use him. So if you have room on your bench, I'd stash him rather than waiting for that blow-up game. So now that he's active, I go ahead and grab him.
My last receiver and final guy here is going to be Mike Williams, a wide receiver for the Chargers. 43.1% owned in ESPN
Really?
leagues. Also surprised me. I know.
You're throwing out big names, and I'm assuming these guys are at least like 70%
Unless
owned.
I'm reading something, unless I read something from
I
last
checked Corey
year.
Davis in ESPN, 36.7.
See, okay, I'm not crazy. Yes, Mike Davis, 43% owned in ESPN leagues. I know, it surprised me also, and I really don't understand it because Justin Herbert is slanging it right now. And Mike Williams has had 20 points in 2 of his past 3 games. Yes, he had a 1-catch performance in between. but if the past game is anything to go off of with Mike Williams, it's that Justin Herbert really likes throwing him the football, especially in the end zone. I think and he's a big time downfield threat for Justin Herbert, and I think that's going to continue. I'd absolutely grab Mike Williams right now.
Mm-hmm. My next guy is a QB, and you're probably going to think I'm weird for saying it based on how he performed in his first game. I'm going Tua Tagovailoa, 25.5% owned. I know he only had 93 yards and a touchdown this past week, but I'm going to cut him some slack because the Rams have been a nightmare for opposing quarterbacks, and his schedule actually eases up considerably rest of the season for quarterbacks, that is, because he faces only 2 top 15 defenses against QBs the rest of the way. So I'm not saying he's going to be like your QB1 or anything. I'm just saying that it's a guy that if he finishes strong, I'd rather have him stashed on my team, especially in a dynasty or keeper format, than have to face him in the playoffs.
I actually agree with you. I think Tua is a guy that if you're desperate for a quarterback, you can grab him. His schedule does soften up, and that Dolphins team's actually playing some solid football. I know. Please don't record that because I may get made fun of for that later. But no, I actually think he has a chance to be pretty good. We know the talent is there, so let's see what he can do. And fun fact, Corey Davis is also owned in less than 50% of Yahoo leagues.
Jesus.
Only 48% owned in Yahoo leagues. And actually that was an increase of 21% last week. So he was even less owned, but in a big way last week. Mainly because he had COVID 2 weeks ago.
I don't have any more. I know a lot of people are trying to recommend Jordan Reed for tight end with George Kittle down. I can't, in good conscience, recommend Jordan Reed to anybody because I know he's going to last about 2 quarters.
You will never hear the name Jordan Reed, and I recommend you pick him up and play him come out of this mouth. No. I've watched this man get hurt too many times every year.
Yeah, I honestly, I avoid the Titans, the 49ers tight ends at this point. Like, I don't know if I trust anyone in that tight end group.
Honestly, I really don't trust that offense right now outside of Brandon Ayuk. Just saying.
Yeah. Like, if you wanted to grab one of their tight ends and be like, I'm going to stash him just in case he gets a blow up and then I don't have to fight people on the waivers next week, sure. But, like, there's no one I can honestly recommend to you.
Fair. Anyway. Shall we go to quickly run through our...
my favorite part of this podcast.
Starts and sits of the week. All right, let's do it. Quarterbacks. Since I started the waivers, do you want to take out...
I'll take it.
All right, go ahead.
I'm going to assume you probably have this guy too, though. So Deshaun Watson against Jacksonville is my start of the week.
I actually don't.
Oh, shit.
I tried to go a little bit lower down.
Yeah.
I didn't, though.
Jacksonville's allowing 22.5 fantasy points per game to QBs. And Deshaun Watson actually played him in week 5, and he had 360 yards and 3 touchdowns, adding 25 on the ground. Justin Herbert had 66 rushing yards against him in week 7. I know Watson has not been running the ball as much this season, but based on what Herbert did, I think there's at least room to believe that he could get you like 50 yards rushing on top of what he's probably going to do to them in the air. And I hate to imagine how badly he's going to destroy them in the air. I definitely think Deshaun gets at least 302 this week. So that's my start of the week.
Yeah, I would tend to agree with that. My start of the week this week is actually Josh Allen going up against the Seahawks.
Yep.
Seahawks defense gives up a ton of points, like a ton of points, and I expect a big time shootout in this one because neither defense really is all that great. And both quarterbacks are fantastic, and I know every single time we say that the game is not a shootout, but I really do believe it this time. I swear. Go ahead.
My next start of the week is Ben Roethlisberger against Dallas. I just don't think the Dallas pass D is any good. I think it's still the defense that allowed Matt Ryan and Russ Wilson to combine for nearly 600 yards and 9 touchdowns on him.
Carson Wentz really is just that bad.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, I get it. The past 5 weeks, they've only allowed, like I went through and counted. They've allowed, over the past 5 weeks, they allowed an average of 178 yards and 1.5 touchdowns. And on paper, that's really good.
What?
But only one of those games was against a top 5 fantasy quarterback, which is Kyler Murray. And that's only because the run was working so well that Murray didn't have to throw the ball because Drake and Murray combined for 238 yards and 3 rushing touchdowns. Okay?
I remember that game.
But the rest of those games were against a QB 27, QB 31, QB 26, QB 17. They were not playing good quarterbacks.
So not even top 15 quarterbacks.
Yeah, it's inflated. So I'm calling this pass defense as fraudulent, and Big Ben's got way too many weapons to not take advantage here. So that's why he's my start of the week.
I agree.
It feels weird that I have to call the Dallas pass defense out as fraudulent, but here I am.
Well, it is what it is. My next start of the week is going to be Tom Brady going up against the Saints. This is a guy who's honestly been a big surprise for me this year. He's outperformed in a lot of ways. He's been really successful, and he's got weapons galore in Tampa Bay. And he added another one that I believe is going to be ready next week in Antonio Brown, who he's had some experience with in the past. So I think that he's gonna fit quite nicely in with that Tampa Bay offense and having Tom Brady there. We saw what Antonio Brown did in his first game with the Patriots. I'm calling it. I actually think he gets in the end zone in his first game with the Bucks as well. Hey. And Tom Brady is going to be a beneficiary of having literally every weapon a quarterback can ever dream of. So you have a quarterback's wet dream in Tampa Bay, and Tom Brady's going to have the opportunity to put up a ton of points on a bad passing defense in New Orleans.
Oh, yeah. My sit of the week. Ben DiNucci. No, I'm just kidding. For the third week in a row, it's Drew Brees against Tampa.
That's one that I got.
Tampa's only allowing 13.5 fantasy points per game to quarterbacks, and when Brees played him in week 1, he only threw for 198 yards. Although he did manage a pair of touchdowns, I'll give him that. But if Michael Thomas is still out this week, I expect that output to be worse than what he did in week 1. So I'd go 198
did he have
yards
Michael
and
Thomas
one touchdown.
In week 1 too?
He did, but Michael Thomas got shut the hell down.
Okay.
So.
All right.
So next man up is getting shut the hell down.
So I also had Drew Brees for the exact same reasons that you did. That Bucs defense is not friendly to quarterbacks. But my next set of the week is actually Ryan Tannehill against the Bears. Another defense that is not friendly to quarterbacks. And also, is that game in Chicago? Where are you? No, it's at home. But regardless... I don't expect Ryan Tannehill to perform that great. He's coming off of a bad week this week, and I don't expect him to turn around against a tough Bears defense. And I also think that the Bears are going to look to try to control some of that TOP to keep the ball out of Derrick Henry's hands. And I think the Titans are going to try to pound the rock a little bit. So it's the game flow I don't think is going to go Ryan Tannehill's way. So I don't expect to have a great game. I think the ceiling is pretty low and the floor is even lower for Ryan Tannehill this week.
All right, moving on to running backs.
Let's do it.
All right, my running back start of the week is going to be Chase Edmonds against Miami. Miami's faced maybe the weakest group of running backs I've seen from a team thus far this season. They've only had one running back that's even carried the ball more than 11 times against them. And they're still allowing the 7th most points to the position, believe it or not. Chris Carson is that one running back that I just mentioned to carry the ball more than 11 times, and that was 16 times, and he went for 80 yards and 2 touchdowns. Now, Chase Edmonds is stepping into Kenyon Drake's workload of about 18 carries per game, so that's kind of around what I'm expecting him to get, which should be enough volume to do damage against the Dolphins' run D. Not to mention, I think there's a legitimate argument to be made that Edmonds could even be better than Kenyon Drake. Not to mention, he should be very affordable in DFS, so he's my start of the week.
Don't hate that one at all. I'm going to go with one that I'm going to stick with a matchup I just talked about. And I'm sticking with that Bears-Titans matchup, but I'm going starting David Montgomery this week against the Titans. And I mentioned one of the reasons that I don't like Ryan Tannehill is because I think the Bears are going to want to control the TOP and the tempo, and they're going to be able to
stones.
Yes, it is. He's actually not. I mean, he's not been great this year, but he's had his moments. But the Titans' run D is not good. It's pretty damn bad. So I think that they're going to look to try to pound the rock a little bit and go after that bad run defense in Tennessee. And I think David Montgomery is going to be a beneficiary of that. Is he like an ultra high ceiling player? No, but is he a guy that you can plug in and say, hey, he's got an opportunity to do something based on matchup? Yes, I do think he's got a good opportunity. Plus, in DFS, he may be pretty damn cheap. So he's a guy you could look at having a surprise week this week.
Oh, I don't hate it. I'm terrified of it, but I don't hate it.
You're just scarred by the fact that you drafted him in like the 3rd round 2 years ago and it killed you. Let's be real. You hate the man forever because of it.
I think I hate Bears running backs in general forever because I did the same thing with what's his face, Jeremy Langford. I drafted him in like the 3rd round like 5 years ago. What was it now? Because he was coming in like, oh yeah, that's a workhorse, and then he just didn't do shit. So, same with David Montgomery.
A little fun fact about David Montgomery: he's actually, in terms of total scoring, RB13. He's just outside of RB1 numbers right now.
I have him RB21.
I don't think your numbers are updated with Week 8 scoring. Because what do you have him at in terms of points?
Total points?
Yes.
I'd have to pull up my actual.
Well, in terms of
numbers.
average,
I'm just on ESPN's app on my phone right now.
Okay, in terms of average, he might be RB21, and that might be PPR. I don't know if mine's PPR, but I have him at
right here.
I have him at 105.2, which is good enough to be 0.2 points ahead of Chris Carson and 4 points ahead of Ronald Jones, just behind James Conner at RB13. So that's what I have him at, is at RB13 on this rankings board on NFL.com.
Yeah. 105.2 looks about right based on what I'm seeing.
Yeah.
In terms of, yeah. Anyway, my next start of the week is James Conner against, believe it or not, Dallas. I've harped on their passing D already, but let's talk about their performance against the run. They're allowing an average of 5 yards per carry, which is good for bottom 3 in the NFL. I already talked about Kenyon Drake torching him for 164 and 2 on 20 carries in week 6. Antonio Gibson gashed him for 128 yards and a touchdown in week 7, I think it was. And even Boston Scott managed 15 for 70 last week. They even let old-ass Devontae Freeman have by far his best game in a Giants uniform, allowing him to go for 60 yards and a touchdown, okay? Connor goes for 100 and a pair of TDs on 20 carries easy in this game. He was my start of the week last week, but welcome to the start squad, James Conner.
I've going to ride a guy I have all season long not believed in. I'm going interesting. I'm going off the beaten path with my running back picks this week. And it's a guy I really don't believe in that much, but I think the matchup is just too juicy to pass up, and it's Clyde Edwards-Helaire going up against the Panthers. The Panthers' run defense is a dumpster fire. It's hot garbage, and I think Clyde Edwards-Helaire may have an opportunity to make it look even worse than it really is. If they are willing to give him some opportunities this week, I do think he makes the most of them, and I do think he gets into the end zone and makes some plays happen. I'm just wondering whether or not they're going to decide to throw the ball a ton of times, and even though they've got like a 30-point lead. I think Clyde Edwards-Helaire is going to have every opportunity to be successful against this Carolina Panthers run D. So I am throwing him in as a start. But again, I do not believe in him.
I am terrified of either of your starts. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, I'm so scared that
I went off the beaten path.
I'm gonna play him and he's gonna give me like 8 carries.
So let me in standard scoring, let me give you David Montgomery's last 5 weeks.
David Montgomery hasn't been terrible. He's still technically an RB2. Like he isn't
he's been actually pretty good in standard scoring. This isn't even including PPR numbers. 12.5 this past week, 11.9, 13.7, 18.9, 10.7. It's been in double digits, and then there was 7.4 and then 21.7 before that. If he's only scored twice this year. And only in one of those games in the past 5 weeks did he score. If he gets in the end zone, he's going to get you up in the high teens to low 20s in scoring. And even if he doesn't score, he's still getting you in that low teens to mid-teens range. So, and I do think up against that Tennessee defense, they are going to probably pound the rock with him, and he's probably going to end up getting into the end zone. He's also a factor in the passing game, getting between somewhere in that 20 to 30 receiving yards a game range. So I do think he's a guy you can rely on and look at in that matchup to say, hey, maybe he's really good. The start time is really odd, though.
Is that
that's Pacific time. That's why.
I'm about to say. All right, my start of the week.
I don't know why I'm getting Pacific time zone start times in this, but whatever.
Prepare for big name sits the rest of the way, Nick. All right, Alvin Kamara. I know you don't actually sit going in Tampa. I know you don't actually sit Alvin Kamara, so I guess it's more of a fade. But Tampa's allowing an average of 48 yards and like half a touchdown to opposing running backs. They also have the lowest yards per carry allowed in the NFL by far at 2.7. Kamara faced him in week 1. He had by far his worst game on the ground. He had 12 carries for 16 yards. He also had a below average day through the year, 5 catches for 51. That's actually below average.
Surprisingly below average for Alvin Kamara.
His fantasy day was spared by finding the end zone, but I don't know if you're going to want to pay top dollar for someone that I think is going to be touchdown reliant this week. So Alvin Kamara is my, I guess, fade of the week.
Fair. That is the buyer beware of the week with Alvin Kamara, where you're going a guy that you're probably starting regardless in your season long leagues. I'm going with a guy that I'm not starting at all due to he's a little bit hobbled, and I don't know that he's going to get the opportunity this week, and it's Jonathan Taylor going up against the Ravens. Even if he does get the start and gets the opportunities this week, I don't think he's going to do anything with them. I don't like any of the Colts running backs this week. That Ravens defense is not friendly to running backs. Very aggressive and very tough to score on, so I don't like Jonathan Taylor this week, and he's also dealing with an ankle injury, so I don't even know if he's going to be playing or if he's going to be getting a starter's workload this week. So I'm sitting Jonathan Taylor this weekend up against Baltimore.
Okay. Any other sits, or ready to move on to wide receiver?
I do have one more. Todd Gurley against Broncos, another defense that's not fun to run on. Todd Gurley's actually been kind of a surprise this year in how effective he's been. Is he giving you Todd Gurley of the Rams type numbers? No, but he's giving you Todd Gurley that is better than what we thought he would be. But that Broncos defense is one that's tough on running backs, and I don't think that they're going to really be able to really set the tone with the run this week. So I think they're going to try to do it through the air with Matt Ryan and put the load on his shoulders. So Todd Gurley, I don't like the matchup.
All right, my wide receiver star of the week, Stephon Diggs against Seattle.
That's who I got.
I love attacking the Seattle defense, but the Seattle's allowing 46.5 fantasy points per game to opposing wide receivers, which is the most in the NFL by a long shot. They've allowed 800-yard wide receivers this season, and Ayuk was so close to making it 9 this past week. John Brown still seems to be hampered by a knee injury, judging by how he performed against the Patriots. So I think Diggs will see plenty of opportunities here, so he's the guy I go with.
The Seahawks are the most 2020 modern day team in the world. Like they have such an incredible offense, and their defense is straight up equally as bad. Like for every bit as good as that Seahawks offense is, their defense matches it, but they're still a really good football team. I also have Stephon Diggs as well for the same reasons, but I'm also going to go with Allen Robinson against the Titans. The Titans defense just is not good, and Allen Robinson is the clear number one option in Chicago, and he's been giving you pretty solid numbers week in and week out. I think Allen Robinson is a guy that I would really like to see have an opportunity this week up against a bad Titans defense. They're good scoring opportunities as well, just like David Montgomery. And I can't believe I picked two, not one, but two Bears offensive players this week to plug into your lineup.
Taking them to win this game or what?
I don't know.
No, I'm with you on Allen Robinson. He's quietly been a top 5 wide receiver in half-point PPR scoring since Nick Foles has taken over as QB. Titans are also bottom 3 in points per game. Like you mentioned, two wide receivers at 38 points per game to the position. They don't have the Chicago Bears don't have a wealth of receiving options, so that's the guy I look to take advantage. Now I'm gonna throw an asterisk on this though. We did find out today that the Titans just traded for Desmond King, and
I don't know that he's gonna be ready to play by the weekend.
That's why I'm keeping as my start of the week, because I don't know if he's going to actually play this weekend, and 2, even if he does play, I don't know how much he's going to get because he's also learned the system. So
right. I mean, you could argue
still
that
going
maybe
full steam ahead with Allen Robinson, but there's a little part of me that's a little scared that Desmond King might be
like
draping him.
You may be in a situation where they just say, "Hey, Desmond, see that man right there? A-Rob, yeah." Get on him like wet on rice. Like, don't let him go. Just stay on him, regardless of what everybody else does. Stay on that man and don't let him go.
By the way, you're telling me the Lions could have had an all-pro corner for a 6th-round pick?
Well, nobody ever said the Lions make the right decisions.
And we chose like a 32-year-old defensive.
I mean, in all reality, Everson Griffin's actually had a halfway productive season
I'm not saying
so
bad,
far.
But
yes.
All right. What's your set of the week?
My set of the week is AJ Brown going up against the Bears. Apparently I'm hammering this Bears Titans matchup, and I'm all in favor of the Bears, and I'm very much against the Titans. The Bears defense is just really good. They are who we thought they were. They're even better than who we thought they were, and they're really good. And AJ Brown coming off of a tough week that was saved by a touchdown. I don't know that he gets saved this week. He's got a really tough matchup, and I think they're going to be draped all over him. So I'm not liking AJ Brown.
I don't think he does because the Bears have only allowed 2 touchdowns to wide receivers.
Plus, with the emergence of Corey Davis being out there as well, I think that takes away some of the target share to A.J. Brown. So I think that's 2 reasons why you don't look his way this week.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. Like I said, I don't think he gets saved by a touchdown because they've only allowed 2 touchdowns to wide receivers this season. So it's slim
That's
chance.
such a wild stat.
Right? They held guys like Mike Evans to 41 yards. They held Cooper Kupp to 43 yards.
Like,
those are
that's
guys
honestly...
those are guys that are a similar make of receiver to A.J. Brown, so I don't think they're going to have too much trouble containing
What's
A.J.
more
Brown.
wild of a stat? The fact that the fact that the Bears have only allowed 2 touchdowns to wide receivers this year, or the fact that the Seahawks have allowed 8, almost 9, 10, 11, and 12 receivers to have 100 yards in a game.
The Seahawks allowed 1 game with 300-yard receivers, all right?
Almost 100 yards, but yes.
No, 3. They had the Falcons. They had 3 guys go for 100.
Yes. Who did they play where they had 3 guys at the 90s, like the high 90s?
Oh, who was it? I'd have to go back to my
I'd have to go back too, but they literally almost allowed 9, 10, 11, and 12.
Yeah. Any other sits, by the way?
I do actually have one more. Robbie Anderson up against the Chiefs.
Okay.
The Chiefs' defense against receivers has been lethal. They're a team that does not allow a lot of points to receivers. And while Carolina definitely likes to feed the ball to Robbie Anderson, I actually think they're going to look to the ground game a little bit this week. Christian McCaffrey's supposed to be back this week, right? He was activated last week, and now he's going to be back. I
don't know if it's like supposed to be, but like there's a chance he comes back.
There's a chance he comes back. Okay, so I do think they do wrinkle in a little bit more of the ground game against Chiefs D, and I think the Chiefs are going to look to shut Robbie Anderson down and have somebody else beat them. So I definitely don't like that matchup at all.
Moving on to tight ends. My start of the week for the second week in a row is going to be Noah Fant.
Yep,
going against Atlanta. He's Atlanta's on the most fantasy points to tight ends per game at 15.9, despite having the luxury of facing Ian Thomas twice. They're one of only 2 teams that have allowed a full touchdown per game to the position. The other one I will mention next. Fant is in a bit of a touchdown slump, but I expect him to break out of that this week. So I'm going Noah Fant.
I like Noah Fant a lot this week as well, but my next start of the week is actually Mike Gesicki up against the Arizona Cardinals. I think Tua Tagovailoa is going to develop just some kind of rapport with this tight end and Mike Gesicki that he's going to like him a lot, especially in the red zone. Gesicki's a really solid tight end, and the Arizona Cardinals defense has been bad against tight ends for a long time, and that's going to continue this week.
Mm-hmm. I like that. My next guy is Jordan Akins going against Jacksonville. This is a Jags team that's allowing 60 yards and a full touchdown per game. That's the other team that's allowing a full touchdown to the tight end position. When Houston played Jacksonville week 5, Akins was hurt. Darren Fells got just about that average, that 60 yards and a touchdown. I think he got like 57 or something like that. But Akins is the better tight end, and he's going to be back for this game and should resume his role as a top 10 in this offense. I think he can do what Akins did. He can do what Fells did easy. So I like Akins to get you at least 15 to touchdown this week.
All right. Sits here. I've got Jared Cook sitting up against the Bucs. Bucs defense is not friendly to tight ends, and I think that's going to continue this week. Jared Cook's actually had quietly a pretty solid season, but that stops this week.
Yeah. Right. Big name number 3 in a row. Travis Kelce. I guess again a fade. Going against Carolina. They haven't allowed more than 54 yards to tight end this season, which is good for 6th in the NFL, but what they have done that the teams above them have done is they face guys like Darren Waller, Jared Cook, Hayden Hurst. Waller and Hurst are both top 5 tight ends on the season in half point PPR. And the only reason Cook isn't is because he missed a game, but his average fantasy points per game would put him right in that mix as well. Again, Kelce is not a guy you're going to sit, like I said, but
buyer beware.
You're probably going to be paying top dollar for him in DFS, and I probably wouldn't do that.
Nope, I would not be doing that this week either. And my start of the week is a guy I was praising no more than, 20 minutes ago? Robert Tonyan going up against 49ers. 49ers defense does not give up a lot of points to tight ends, and the Packers got their work cut out for him this week up against that Niners defense. And I think Tanyan's going to be a little bit of an afterthought because he's going to be draped all day. So definitely not looking his way. I think there's definitely going to be some better options to look in terms of the tight end route this week in DFS.
He hasn't found the end zone in 3 weeks, and the Niners have only allowed 1 touchdown to tight end this season. So I think that
needless to say, it ain't going to continue. Or it is going to continue. Sorry.
Yeah.
That's going to continue, but the 49, I don't know. Never mind.
Speaking of people we just praised, my cheap defense recommendation is defense I just praised, and that's the Washington football team.
That's the one I got. Going up against the Giants.
They're going against the Giants. They're averaging 8.6 fantasy points per game, and the Giants have also coughed the ball up 13 times this season, which is top 5 in the league in terms of like most.
It's Danny throws a lot of dimes to the other team.
Yep.
Jones.
So I like to watch the football team here.
That's also who I've got as my defense to play this week. They're going to be probably a little bit cheaper. A team that, again, the Giants turn the ball over so damn much. He fumbles like crazy. Danny Dimes throws a lot of picks. And I think Washington's going to be able to capitalize on that this week. So definitely a defense I'd be looking at playing in most DFS leagues. And they will probably be my defense start of the week next week. It's fun just being able to cycle back and forth between the Washington football team and the Bucs. It really is. I really didn't like this whole 9 bench spot league to begin with. And I know they only did it because of COVID. But certain parts of it I haven't hated. Yeah. It's been a lot easier to make roster decisions because the guys I'm dropping are way down the list. It's harder. It's hard as hell to get a running back, though. Let me tell you.
Oh yeah, I bet. Is Damian Harris even available in that league?
No, God, no. Yeah, I think he was drafted. Oh man. But anyways, though, that is going to close it out for this week, guys. We went a little bit longer, but we had a couple more things to talk about, so figured it would be a little bit longer of an episode. But we thank you guys for holding out and hanging with us and listening again this week. Andrew, thank you for joining me as well. Check out our Twitter at Real Fan Report, and also check out our other podcast, The Fan Report, also hosted by Detroit Sports Podcast. And thank you to them as well. We will catch you guys next week. Thank you again, and good luck.
Peace.